Chapter Real on the Coinage. 1. In the first chapter we explained the circumstances which gave rise to the use of money, and showed that many substances have been used to fulfill that function. But a metal of some sort has been found to possess the greatest advantages, and of these, gold, silver, and copper have been chiefly preferred. Gold and silver, however, in a perfectly pure state are too soft to be used for this purpose, and it is necessary to mix some other metal with them to harden them, which is called alloy. By a chemical law, whenever two metals are mixed together, the compound is harder than either of them in a pure state. Gold and silver in the mass are called bullion, and as the laws of all countries in which bullion is coined into money define the quantity of alloy to be mixed with the pure metal, we shall use the word bullion to mean gold or silver in the mass, mixed with such a proportion of alloy as is ordered by law, so as to be fit to be coined. Some nations have used bullion as money, but the merchants of these nations were obliged to carry about with them scales and weights, to weigh out the bullion on each occasion. Other nations adopt a more convenient practice. They divide the bullion into pieces of a certain definite weight, and affix some public stamp upon it to certify to the public that these pieces are of a certain weight and fineness, and they give them certain names by which they are commonly known. These pieces of bullion, with a public stamp upon them to certify their weight and fineness, and called by a publicly recognized name, and intended to be used for the purposes of commerce without further examination are called coins. This stamp, or certificate, of course, in no way affects the value of the metal, or the quantity of things it will exchange for. Its only object is to save the trouble of weighing and assaying the bullion in commercial transactions. Nor can the name of the coin in any way affect its value. Values, it is true, are estimated in the number of these pieces of bullion, or coins, but it is necessarily implied in the bargain that these coins contain a certain definite quantity of bullion. It is also perfectly evident that if this process of stamping bullion, and so turning it into coin, is done free of all expense, at their will of anyone who chooses to present bullion and demand to have it stamped, and also without any delay, the value of the metal as bullion must be exactly the same as the value of the metal as coin. If, however, a charge is made for the workmanship, or if any tax is levied on changing the metal from one form into another, or if a delay takes place in doing so, there will be a difference between the value of the metal as bullion and as coin, and this difference will manifestly be the charge for the workmanship, the amount of the tax, and the amount of interest accruing during the period of delay. These however are all fixed, or constant, quantities, which may be ascertained, and they form the limits of the variation of the metal in one form from its value in the other. In the following remarks we shall assume that there is no charge for the workmanship, no tax upon it, and no delay in doing it, no obstruction, in short, of any sort to changing the metal from one form into the other. Upon these assumptions, then, we have this fundamental principle of the coinage: any quantity of metal in the form of bullion must be of exactly the same value as the same quantity of metal in the form of coin. In the case of the coinage of England no charge of any sort is made for coining gold bullion, but as a considerable delay may take place before anyone who brings bullion to the mint can have it coined, the 7 and 8 Vict. 1844, c. 32. Section 4 enacts that every person may take bullion of the standard fineness to the Bank of England, and that the bank shall be obliged to give him notes to the amount of £3 17. 9d. For every ounce of such standard bullion, and as the holder of bank notes may demand legal coin for them at the rate of £3,178. 104d. Per ounce, there is thus practically a difference of 13d. per ounce between gold bullion and gold coin. On the meaning of the mint price and market price of gold and silver. 2. As the very purpose of coining is to certify that the pieces of bullion are of a certain definite weight and fineness, it is evident that a fixed quantity of bullion, as a pound weight, must be divided into a fixed number of coins. The number of coins into which a given quantity of bullion is divided, is called the mint price of that quantity of bullion. It is perfectly clear then that the mint price of bullion is a fixed quantity. It can by no possibility vary until the same quantity of bullion is coined into a different number of coins. To alter the mint price of bullion, is merely an expression which means an alteration in the standard weight of the coinage. To suppose that the mint price of bullion could vary is manifestly as great an error as to suppose that 100 weight of sugar can be a different weight from 112 separate pounds weight of sugar, or that any quantity of wine in a hogshead could differ in quantity from the same quantity of wine in bottles, or that a loaf of bread could alter its weight by being cut up into slices. Until recent times, when more attention has been paid to the state of the coinage, these coins might circulate for a considerable time in a country, and lose a good deal of their weight, without losing their value. People were so accustomed to attach a certain value to the sight of a particular coin, that unless they were money dealers they did not stop to inquire too curiously whether it was exactly of the proper weight or not. In fact, when a coinage has been some time in use, few people know what the legal weight of the coins is. Many, for instance, do not associate the idea of a pound with any particular weight of bullion, and thus in exchange for commodities and services, coins may pass at their nominal value for a considerable time after they have lost much of their legal weight. Thus Shakespeare says, "Between man and man, they weigh not every stamp, though light. Take pieces for the figure's sake." When coin has been for some time in circulation, it must necessarily lose a good deal of its weight from the wear and tear of circulation, even if it be not subjected to any bad practices, such as clipping, which used to be done to a great extent in this country before the practice of milling the edges was adopted. In 1816, when the last great reformation of the coinage took place in England, the greater part of it was nothing but a thin wafer of silver, from which all traces of an impression had long since vanished, and it was reduced to scarcely more than half its legal weight. Though coins may circulate in a country for some time after they have lost a good deal of their weight, without any perceptible change in their value with respect to ordinary commerce, when they are given in exchange for bullion the case is different. As the value of bullion is measured weight for weight with the coins, it is clear that if the coins have lost weight, a greater number of them must be given to purchase any amount of bullion than if they were of full weight. Thus if the mint price of silver bullion be 58.2d per ounce, or if that quantity of silver bullion is cut into that number of coins, then if the coins have lost their weight from any cause, it is clear that more than 58.2d must be given to purchase an ounce of bullion. It may require perhaps 6s, or even more to buy an ounce of bullion. The quantity of coin at its full legal weight which is equal to a given weight of bullion is called the mint price of that quantity of bullion, but the quantity of the current coin which is equal to it in weight is called the market price, and as, if the coin sure diminished in weight, more of them must be given than if they are of full weight, the market price will apparently be higher than the mint price, and this is called a rise of the market price of bullion above the mint price. The meaning of this is that the current coins are deficient in their legal weight. If the market price of silver be 6s. an ounce, it means that 6 shillings contain only as much silver as 58.2d ought to do, or that the current coins want 1/6 of their legal weight. Thus it is perfectly clear that the rise of the market price is due to the depreciation of the coinage. Hence we have this fundamental law of the coinage: when the market price of bullion rises above the mint price, the excess is the proof and the measure of the depreciation of the coinage. The market price of bullion could never fall below the mint price, unless there was more bullion in the coins than there ought to be, which of course would never be the case. If such a case could happen, the fall in the market price below the mint price would be the proof and the measure of the excess of the coins above their legal weight. 3. If the coinage of a country fall into a degraded state from long wear and tear, or other causes, and a new coinage of full weight be issued, and allowed to circulate along with it, one of two effects must inevitably follow. Either those persons who have commodities to sell will make a difference in the nominal prices of articles, according as they are paid in full weighted, or degraded, coin, that is the depreciated coin will be at a discount as compared with the full weighted coin, or if there be a law to prevent this, and to make both pass at the same value, bullion dealers will immediately collect all the full weighted coins they can, and melt them down into bullion, or export them, so that the new coinage will quickly disappear from circulation. These considerations lead us to a fundamental and universal law in economics, which has been found to be true in all countries and ages, that bad money drives out good money from circulation, or as it is expressed in an old pamphlet, when two sorts of coin are current in the same nation of like value he denomination, but not intrinsically, that which has the least value will be current, and the other as much as possible will be hoarded or exported. We may add, the fact of the disappearance of good coin in the presence of bad coin was noticed by Aristophanes, and was long the puzzle of financiers and statesmen, who continued to issue good coin from the mint while the old and degraded coin was allowed to circulate, and they were greatly perplexed by its immediate disappearance, till Sir Thomas Gresham explained the cause, whence we have called it Gresham's law of the currency. We shall shortly see another instance of its importance. It is also from the same principle that a paper currency is invariably found to expel a metallic currency of the same denomination from circulation. And to show the generality of the principle, it was found in America that when a depreciated paper currency had driven coin out of circulation, and a still more depreciated paper currency was issued, the more depreciated paper drove out the less depreciated from circulation. It may be worthwhile to notice an error which is by no means unfrequent. Some writers contend against fixing the price of gold, as it is called. It is now acknowledged to be a great economical error to attempt to fix the price of any articles. Some writers contend that it is an equal error to fix the price of gold. But those who do so overlook a very important consideration. The word price, except in the single instance mint price, always denotes the quantity of one article, which is used as a measure which is given for another article of a different nature. Thus we say that the price of a bushel of wheat is 68, when the silver, the substance of which shillings are composed, is of a different nature from the wheat. But in the expression mint price of bullion, it always means the value of bullion expressed in coin of the same metal. The mint price of gold bullion means its price expressed in gold coin. The mint price of silver bullion means its price expressed in silver coin. So long, therefore, as the coins retain their full legal weight, the market price of bullion can by no possibility vary from its mint price. If the law requires an ounce of gold to be coined into 31,178, 104d. So long as the coins retain their full legal weight, it can make no difference in the market price whether gold becomes as plentiful as iron, or as scarce as diamonds, for the money always continues at the same weight whatever be the abundance or the scarcity of the metal. The value of gold may vary with respect to other things. It may purchase more or less bread, or meat, or clothes, or anything else at one time than at another, but it is absolutely impossible that its value in bullion can differ from its value in coin. To suppose that it could, would be as irrational as to suppose that because bread became very abundant or very scarce, a loaf of bread could differ from itself in weight when cut up into slices, or a cask of wine differ from itself when drawn off into bottles. The mint price of gold, therefore, is nothing more than a public declaration of the weight of metal which the law requires to be in the coin, which accidental circumstances have caused to be considered as the legal measure of value in this country, and an alteration of the mint price of gold would be simply an alteration in the standard weight of the coin, and would be the same thing in principle as an alteration of the standard yard measure. Those persons who ridicule the idea of having the mint price of gold fixed, should, to be consistent, also ridicule the idea of having the standard yard measure fixed. Those who wish to let the mint price follow the market price should also contend that every tradesman should have his yard measure of as many inches as he pleases, because when the market price of gold rises above the mint price, it is precisely analogous to cutting so many inches off the yard. This fraudulent curtailment of the measure of value has never been done since Parliament has been the chief power in the legislature, but it was constantly done in former times when the Crown was more despotic than it is now. The pound at the present day is curtailed of 2/3 of what it was in the time of William the Conqueror. What is a pound? For we must now explain how a certain weight of gold bullion has come in modern times to be called a pound. The original measure of value in France, England, and Scotland, was the pound weight of silver bullion. No coin however of this actual weight was ever struck, but the pound weight of silver bullion was cut into 240 pieces called pence. 12 of these pence were called a shilling or solidas, and therefore 20 shillings, or solidi, made a pound. These 240 pence actually weighed a pound of bullion. Now let us denote the pound weight of metal in the form of bullion by the symbol pounds. and the pound weight of metal in the form of coin by the symbol pound. Then we have 240 pence equals 20 shillings equals 1 pound equals LLB. Now it is perfectly clear that if the pound weight of bullion were divided into a greater number of pieces than 240, that greater number would still be equal to the pound weight, and if we denoted by the symbol pound 240 pieces or pence, irrespective of their weight, we should have the LLB equal to 1 pound plus the number of pieces above 240. Now this is what has been done in the coinages of all the 3 countries above mentioned. The sovereigns of these countries were frequently in want of money to pursue their various extravagances, and as they could not make more money, they adopted the fraudulent and surreptitious plan of cutting the pound weight of bullion into a greater number of pieces. But they still called them by the same name. By this means they gained an illusory augmentation of wealth. As they could not multiply the quantity of the metal, they at various periods falsified the certificate. While they still called their coins by the same name, they diminished the quantity of bullion in them, and so coined more than the original number of pence out of a pound weight of bullion. The consequence of this was very manifest, as 240 pence was still called a pound, or pound, in money, whatever their weight was, and as more than 240 pence were coined out of a pound weight of bullion, the pound, or pound of money in coin, began to vary from the pounds, or pound weight of bullion. Edward I began this evil practice in 1300, when he coined 243 pence out of the pound weight of bullion. Subsequent sovereigns followed the same evil example, and this falsification of the certificate increased till in the time of Elizabeth no less than 744 pence, or 62 shillings, were coined out of the pound weight of bullion. Then we have manifestly 744 pence equals 62 shillings equals 3 pounds 28 equals 1 pound. As there are 12 ounces in the pound weight of bullion, it is seen that each ounce was coined into 62 pence, and hence as the value of bullion is measured by the ounce, the mint price of silver was said to be 58 2d the ounce. Afterwards gold was coined as money concurrently with silver, and gold pieces were struck and made to pass current as nearly as could be done at the value corresponding to the market value of gold and silver. Thus there was for a considerable time a double standard. In the reign of Charles II, the African company brought home a large quantity of gold from the Guinea coast. He had it coined into pieces called guineas, which were intended to represent the pound, or 20 shillings in silver. But the mint rating did not agree with the relative value of gold and silver in the market of the world, and consequently the value of the guineas in the market never corresponded with their value as rated by the mint. In 1717 Sir Isaac Newton, the master of the mint, reported to Parliament that the true value of the guinea according to the relative market value of gold and silver at that time was 20s. 8d. A royal proclamation however was issued declaring them to be current at 21s. And then in the language of the mint the price of gold was fixed at 31,178 10d. An ounce. Gold and silver coin were then made unlimited legal tender for debts of any amount. But as gold was overrated by 4d in the pound, and silver was underrated by 4d in the pound, Gresham's law acted, and in the course of the century, merchants universally adopted the custom of paying their debts in gold as the cheapest medium, and the silver coinage was exported, as being depressed below its true value in this country. Gold therefore gradually became to be considered as the measure of value in England. In 1816 this custom was adopted as law, and gold was declared to be the only legal measure of value, and the pound, the legal tender, or measure of value, became the equivalent in gold of 20s. In silver, 40 pounds weight of standard gold bullion by the regulations of the English Mint are cut into 1,869 pounds or sovereigns, or the 1 pound weight of bullion is cut into 461. 148. 6d. Nor as the value of gold is estimated by the ounce, the mint price of gold is fixed at 31. 178. 10d. Per ounce, and, as long as the coins are ordered to be coined of the same weight, the mint price cannot vary. The legal weight of a sovereign or pound is 5 dwts. 317 grns. Containing 1137 GRNS. Of fine gold sovereigns which fall below 5 DWTS. 2 GRNS and half sovereigns of less than 2 DWTS. 13. GRNS. Cease to be legal tender. In former times gold and silver money were equally legal tender to any amount, and their relative values were fixed by law, but gold and silver vary in their value with respect to each other in the market of the world, and consequently even though they may be rated truly at one time by the mint, yet in course of time their value according to the mint regulations is sure to get out of adjustment with their value in the open market, and by Gresham's law, the one that is underrated with respect to the other disappears from circulation, and gives rise to great inconvenience. Locke, therefore, in 1694, pointed out that a nation should adopt only one metal as the legal measure of value, and make any other that may be used subsidiary. This principle was adopted as law in 1816, gold coin was declared the only legal tender to an unlimited amount, and the silver and copper coins were intended only as small change for the gold coin. The coinage of gold is free to the public, but the coinage of silver and bronze is retained by the government. In order to prevent the effect of Gresham's law, the value of the silver coin is artificially raised. Instead of 62 shillings being coined out of the pound weight of silver as before 1816, 66 shillings are now coined out of it, but 4 of these are kept back for the expenses of coinage. The sovereign however is declared to be of the value of 20 of these shillings, which are thus artificially increased in value about 6%. In order to prevent injustice being done, silver coins are not legal tender for any sum above 40s. It having been intended to make the double sovereign the monetary unit. The bronze coins are only worth about 1/4 of their nominal value, and pence and halfpence are only legal tender to the amount of 1 shilling, and farthings to the amount of 6d.